Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Securing ASEAN. I appreciate the attendance, and this is a fantastic session we have lined up for you today. The title being Best of Breed versus Platforms, the Perennial Cybersecurity Debate. I'm sure many of you have heard of this debate before, but we're going to bring a new flavor, a new discussion point, some provocative, perhaps pokes and prods over 60 minutes. Just to give you a high-level view, cybersecurity consolidation is a topic that's, triggered immense strong arguments and passionate debates in our industry. I'm one of those passionate persons. We have two other attendees today that are equally passionate. In this discussion, we'll examine the topic of consolidations, cybersecurity controls, and the key principles that make a cybersecurity consolidation strategy successful. Now, having said that, my name is Stephen Sherman. I'm the Regional Vice President for ASEAN. I'm based in Singapore, and of course, I work for Palo Alto Networks. I will moderate the session. I'm very fortunate today to be participating with two very intelligent, smart industry leaders in this space. Firstly, Shankar, please, I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Again, a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Thanks, Stephen. My name is Shankar Krishnan. I'm part of Boost, which is a full-spectrum digital financial services organization under Axiata. Thank you.
Thank you, Shankar. You're too humble, but thanks for the introduction. I'm looking forward to this chat. And of course, we have also Sid on the call here. Sid, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Stephen and Shankar. Hi, everyone. Great to be a part of this forum. I'm Siddharth Deshpande, also known as Sid. I'm the field CTO at Palo Alto Networks for Asia Pacific and Japan, based in Singapore, and that's where I'm here for this discussion today.
Thank you, Sid. Equally humble as well. I'm surrounded by incredibly humble and intelligent individuals. Before we get started, I'm just going to set the scene. There's going to be questions I throw to the panel, and then after the question, there'll be a quiz. It's important you listen to this very critical point. There is an opportunity for participants here during the quiz time. If you get all three quiz questions correct, you will qualify to win an LED monitor. So that's pretty phenomenal, pretty cool. Unfortunately, I don't qualify, but everyone else, please keep your eye out for the quiz questions. Now, the first question I have to the panel, and here we go. What is your philosophy, best of breed versus platforms? And what does consolidation mean to each of you? So why don't we start with our guest, Shankar. What's your view on this?
Thanks, Stephen. I think it's a very perennial discussion, right? As the topic says. There is no clear, I would say, a clear answer to it. It's very subjective. It again depends on various factors, and it could be very balanced for different organizations. Now, if you look at the outset, some organizations prefer to go more with the best of breed, right? It's a typical part of their process of evaluation. And again, depends on where is their maturity overall in terms to how they're trying to adopt their overall cybersecurity strategy, correct? Now, it could be that the most common aspects followed in the industry is to look at things around whether it's a best of breed from a Gartner top rating. Obviously, it does provide with some benefits if you look at the best of breed overall from better flexibility, more customization. It's able to, it's more about advanced in its own feature sets and as well as the features it provides. Whereas on the other hand, if you look at the platform, it does indeed provide a pretty comprehensive solution as well, right? If you want to talk of single vendor or a single solution standpoint. And the advantage there we get is definitely around it's more centralized management. You have a lot of ease of integration, which we can do. Now, there are a lot of pros and cons as we look at it overall, right? As obviously things around flexibility, specialization, if you look at the best of breed. But even if you look at some of the cons, I would really say it's also about you need to have a lot of features which are going to have more around the integration of all the best of breed solutions around with your existing infrastructure or your estate which you go through, right? So I think it's a bit of balance, even from in a platforms. I think it gives a lot of benefits as well. One of the good pros are the benefits I always see is the centralized visibility or centralized management or a console through which you can have a better view, better administration across your various components or solutions. And also it helps you to very easily streamline your overall operational efficiency. If I have to say around your support, it could be the quality of service and so on and so forth. And now with this in mind, I think it's a pretty debatable. As I said, it's for me, if you look at it, I would always look at the philosophy around the organization and its strategy, where we are. If you look at us as Boost, we are predominantly a fintech where we are doing a lot more disruption. Obviously, it could be in the phase where we are in terms of maturity, where we might take a balanced approach wherein we kind of cut down a bit of, the elements of security solutions. We might look at best of breed for some, as well as look at more about going with a unified platform overall. Now, to go to your second question overall, from a consolidation standpoint, again, from my perspective, I think consolidation is more about looking at how are you trying to achieve some level of optimization, or it could be in various aspects, right? It could be from a cost, from an economy of scale. It could be also about consolidating your various processes and so on. So again, it's a bit of a balance. It could mean different for different organization based on the context or based on the strategy of the organization. So overall, I would say it's very important that when we are looking at it at a consolidation, it also needs to look at the aspects about simple things, right? What's your level of specialization you as an organization need if you're looking at that, right? Do you have the right people? Do you have the right capability in case you're looking at consolidation? How are the challenges around various having a single vendor who's going to provide you a service, whether they are going to be able to achieve the service components or the measurements which you define, right? I think it again underpins to your overall strategy and how are you and what's your outcome you're really looking forward towards it.
Okay, thank you, Shankar. I like the fact that you refer to the organization you work in, which is important, so that the real life context and the importance which you flagged around visibility and optimization and so forth. So that I can appreciate that. Sid, I'd like your view on this, particularly on the comments around, again, best of breed versus our platform and around optimization. When is the trigger to consolidate? I mean, what are the factors that drive consolidation, and what are the pros and cons from your standpoint, Sid?
Thanks, Stephen and Shankar. Look, I think it's all about trade-offs, right? I mean, you have to compare both the options at hand. Let's say you have 3 or 4 different technologies deployed doing different functions, and there's an opportunity to consolidate. You have to evaluate the trade-offs of what are you going to get by keeping those 3 or 4 different functions as distinct functions that are operating in different tech stacks versus integrating, right? So I think it's all about the trade-offs, and it all depends on the context. I think today, the wave of consolidation we are seeing now is actually being powered by things like cloud and machine learning and artificial intelligence. So in a sense, the possibilities with how we can consolidate security technologies and platforms today is actually a bit different from what we've seen in the past. Because today it's actually possible, I believe, to have best of breed as well as the platform approach, right? It doesn't have to be either or. Now, when it actually comes to consolidation, when you start comparing the trade-offs, you have to look at things like, okay, by consolidating security function as part of a platform, am I able to get a unified management console? Am I able to get a unified data lake? Am I able to scale my security defense capabilities in a better way to align with the business? Because ultimately, all of us, whether we're on the vendor side or we're on the defenders, on the end user side, right? In the security community, we're in the business of mitigating and managing risk for the business, so that the business can actually innovate and deliver competitive differentiation and so on. So, by delivering on the consolidation promise, are you able to improve your security posture of your organization? Are you able to manage risk better? Are you able to improve user experience? Are you able to accelerate business outcomes by making your security program more efficient and scalable? These are the kinds of questions that, in my conversations with CIOs and CISOs, folks like Shankar and his peers, I frequently come across these topics, right? It's not just about consolidating for the sake of consolidation. So consolidation is not just about buying a bunch of different disaggregated technology capabilities from a single cybersecurity vendor. It's about peeling back the layers and figuring out what sort of business benefits are you getting from the consolidation in terms of your security posture, in terms of your user experience. And I've actually found that uh, if done right, consolidation can be a great force multiplier for any cybersecurity program, because one thing is for sure in our industry, we're always going to have a numerical disadvantage, whether it is the fewer number of security defenders compared to attackers, or the fewer number of security professionals compared to DevOps or IT people. We're always, by definition, going to be fewer in number. So we have to find ways to scale our security programs. And if done right, consolidation can be a great vehicle for that. But the emphasis is on if it's done right.
Thanks for that, Sid. Always as detailed and eloquent as every time you speak. Look, I heard some really wonderful words, and not just buzzwords. You know, the context, the use case, the visibility. You know, driving and mitigating risk without foregoing the ability to innovate, etc. Because at the end of the day, security is going to support the growth and the innovation of the organization and company. In this case, we're talking about Boost as an example. So thanks for that, Sid and Shankar. That was very, very interesting for me. We're now going to go to our first pop quiz. Now, remember, everyone, this is an opportunity for you to qualify for that LED monitor. The quiz question is, and by the way, you can put your comments in the, your answers in the comment session. And the question is as follows in front of you. Cybersecurity consolidation combines multiple siloed security functions into security platforms that manage your business risks by protecting your entire IT environment. True or false? We'll give you 10 seconds to answer this, and then we will share the answer. And there you go. True. I mean, you heard both Shankar and Sid talk to parts of this particular question, so the answer is true. Let's now move on to the next question I want to pose to the panel. And we'll start with Sid this time. Is consolidation new? Is this something new that we're hearing in the market? Have we seen it before in the industry? And if we have seen it before, what lessons have we learned? And based on those lessons, how can we present these lessons to the present scenario we're in now, 2023, the last day of June? What have we learned here, Sid?
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective, right? Comparing it to the past. So let me take a couple of examples. Let's take the example of malware sandboxing, right? About 10, 15 years ago, you had these specialized vendors that came out and said, look, we're going to offer specialized appliances that can actually detonate files in a safe environment to figure out if a file has got malware or not. Over time, what happened is that this capability of malware sandboxing became a feature of a number of different platforms, right? It became a feature of network security platforms, became a feature of endpoint security, and so on. So it kind of got consolidated, and then the market for specialized malware sandboxing appliances just went away, right? Nobody today, very few companies, maybe a few companies out there do that, but most companies are using malware sandboxing as an embedded capability of a broader platform. So what that actually tells me is that there is a maturity curve, or as Gartner calls it, the hype cycle for technologies. As they emerge, there is a case to be made for having them as very specialized capabilities, but quickly they actually get consolidated into platforms. Now, this example that I gave you was more from a network security and appliance perspective. Now let's talk about the cloud angle. So, not too long ago, I used to be a Gartner analyst, right? And I used to write about markets and how markets are evolving. And one of the markets that I started writing about in 2014, around about that time, was the CASB market, which is the Cloud Access Security Broker market, which is a capability that allows you to do security for SaaS applications. Now, Unlike the earlier example of malware sandboxing, this market actually got commoditized very quickly because this was not an appliance. This was a cloud delivered service. So there was an emergent need in the market where people were doing proxies for internet traffic, and they were doing VPNs or software defined perimeters for private applications. CASB was addressing a specific use case for SaaS applications. It emerged. It was a standalone market for maybe a year and a half. It quickly got subsumed into the overall Security Services Edge, or SSE platform. So the way I see it now is that with the power of the cloud, if a security vendor is actually architected their stack in the correct way, in the correct cloud native way, it is possible to consolidate even emerging capabilities very, very rapidly into the base platform. But that doesn't mean that it's the same across the board, right? You have to have an underlying architecture that sets the foundation for this consolidation to happen quickly. As we've seen with the CASB example, vendors that or security providers that have had the ability to add on new use cases without changing the underlying architectural constructs, like without adding another agent or without having to have another management console or another data format or another logging store, that have been able to extend the existing platform to include a new use case like CASB. They're the ones that are being seen as leaders in the overall security services edge space. But then there's also other vendors that haven't been able to adapt their base platforms because they haven't had that cloud native capability or cloud native layer. There you find that even though vendors offer that capability, it's still essentially a different product just wrapped under the same console, right? Under a single sign-on management console, but underneath it's still a different product. So the lesson learned from the CASB example is that with cloud being used as a mechanism to deliver security capabilities, consolidation is actually happening much faster than it was before. But the architectural principles have to be in place for that to happen.
Thanks for
Sorry,
that.
did I go overboard with my explanation?
No, not at all. I mean, it was interesting. You gave an example in, I don't want to say the old area of networking, but you gave some great examples of very specific types of innovation, which then led to consolidation and those best of breed disappearing. And more importantly, you spoke to the changes in the cloud security market. I want to pose the same question to Shankar, but obviously the slight nuance in my question would be maybe perhaps specifically in your current role, what you've seen in terms of consolidation as well, apart from in your previous lives. I'd be interested to hear your view.
Sure, Stephen. I think it's I think we just started with that point, right? The overall aspect around consolidation is not entirely new. All of us, as part of our various roles, we have played. We've definitely been a part of the journey. It could be consolidation from overall looking at your overall security function in terms of how you want to look at it, maybe a micro consolidation or a macro consolidation, or it could also go down to the aspects around looking at your tool sets and trying to see how you want to do. So it's been there, at least over the years. I spent more than a decade in consulting, and I've been advising a lot of clients. So one of the most common thing why, again, as we said, is the objective. Why are we as an organization or anybody is looking at consolidation, and what's the objective towards it? What are you trying to achieve, right? As we said, is it going to help you to overall increase your capex? Is it going to give some cost optimization? Are you looking at a more like an economy of scale or better operational processes, right? Reduce complexity. So I think these are some of the common elements which kind of becomes a driving factor. Now, however, if you look at it, there are a lot of lessons we learn, right? And I think it all goes back to the core principles we always talk about. One of the most important thing around consolidation, which we always say, right, in the industry is there should be a very clear strategy in terms of what are you trying to really look at from a consolidation, right? How it's going to underpin to your organization strategy, and also how it's going to align to your business strategy, right? What is the ROI? You're going to, end of the day, go back, right? Because overall, you look at it, security or those solutions or functions are typically more cost-centered rather than revenue-generating centers, right? And it's also about trying to see how can you really help the organization strategy in terms of getting it a bit more clear. A very important element I always say is the tone from the top, right? Because I feel it's very important when you're trying to run a consolidation as an exercise. It has to be very well resonated right from the top to the bottom, and it should be both top down as well as bottom up approach, where everybody is trying to talk the same objectives, which is aligned to the organization strategy, right? So I think it underpins those foundational principles. But one of the, I just kind of take 2 or 3 key examples, right? Key elements which we look at as lessons learned from the past. I think integration. Now, it could depend again the size of the organization in terms to what level are they in part of the consolidation journey. I think one of the most important lesson learned, and which we need to really emphasize as an organization, is really look at what could be the challenges in terms of integrating these consolidated platforms into one, right? Maybe you're going from a varied platform into one, or it could be the other way around as well. Now, what happens with that is the key element, which nowadays more and more regulators are more emphasizing as well as part of the overall technology risk as a gamut, which is all about interoperability, right? Mm-hmm. Thinking about the portability, how smooth and how interoperable it's going to be even in future. Even this consolidation, would it lead to any specific risk? I think that is very important for most CISOs to really be aware and take that step. Again, looking at the elements of compatibility with the other components, which is going to be help you run through your overall overall security or overall technology stack as such. I think this will be an important element. The other very important thing which I always feel as a part of the consolidation journey is really looking at, which even Sid kind of touch based on, right, on new use cases evolving your solution. I think it's very important to see how what's the efficacy of your overall consolidated solution is all about, right? We really need to have very good validation mechanism, very good testing mechanism. You need to be clear, what are you trying to consolidate? There has to be proper measures in place so that you're able to know what is the outcome are you trying to achieve, so that the efficacies of those solutions are going to really help out, because end of the day, they're going to form your layers of defense, right? And then you could couple up with a lot more, like, looking at your vendor management. Again, there are a lot more discussion around happening that the vendor, you're looking consolidation means you're going to bring in one vendor, which could solve most of your problems. But however, there's also a flip side to it, right? You need to ensure in terms to how is a vendor open in terms to working with you as a partner, rather than trying to not really look at innovating, right? They need to be looking at stepping up the game so that they are able to provide those unique proposals or solutions, or have more heavy focus around the evolving threats and so on, right? So I think this would be some of the elements, Stephen, from at least the past experiences, which I could share.
No, thanks for that, Shankar. I appreciate those comments and that level of transparency. I do like the points you flagged around IT aligning to the broader business objectives of the organization. I think that's often forgotten. There is an initiative to consolidate, forgetting actually this is the use case we're trying to deliver. So I do appreciate that comment. The efficacy, the interoperability, the compatibility, the future proofing, etc., is really important, because one thing that remains the same in our industry, there's constant change. So that's also important. But I think what I really like, and I think it's a testament to this chat we're having here, is the partnering. The fact that we as a leading vendor can sit down with someone like yourself, Shankar, and talk about how we're partnering. We're trying to understand, where is Boost going? How can we support, the efficacy and the types of use cases you're trying to deliver to your customer, which could potentially be a future threat to your customer base. So thank you for those comments. We're now going to give the opportunity for the audience again to have a look at a quiz question. So remember, everyone, getting the questions right qualify you for this LED monitor. So let's put up the question. And again, you'll have 10 seconds. I'm not going to read it out this time because this is a really long one, but we'll give you 10 seconds.
Very interesting. This report is also available, Stephen, on our website for download for those that are interested. Okay. But yeah.
Thanks for flagging that. Yeah, this is an important report and it's insightful too. And there you go, 96%, which is kind of astounding. I'm going to say something provocative. The 4% that doesn't add up to 100 are those people too embarrassed or shy to say they've been breached. possibly. So, look, that's a massive number. So it just shows the type of challenges that we have in our industry. There's this huge push to digitize, digital transformation, etc., go online, digital banking, online payments, and this is the type of potential risk we expose our customers and our organization to. We are now going to go to the third question. I'm going to pass this over to you, Shankar. And the question is, can you just tell? I know we're kind of beating the same drum here, but it's the theme of this chat here. Tell us about your own personal consolidation journey in cybersecurity and technology overall. I'm sure you're equally as long as me in the industry. Fortunately, you've maintained your hair, unlike myself. So I'd be interested to hear your personal stories on this question.
Maybe I just gone trot more wiser with my beard.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that, but at least you've got hair.
Yeah. So I think, Stephen, again, as I said, right, we've been, again, talking the similar principles, and I think I've alluded to those points in terms of looking at the overall strategy around adoption, right? I think I wouldn't want to talk specifically from Boost or not, but giving a general perspective, at least in some of the industries which I've worked up, and also how have we taken, right? As again, every time we go back to the same foundation, right? Every time we wanted to do the consolidation exercise, it definitely had a trigger. Now, the trigger was, again, all about the objective or the context in terms of why, what is the objective as an organization want to do. It typically drove from a top-down approach, wherein the organization was looking at maybe a more cost optimization, right? Or else the organization was looking at what could be a way in terms to looking at more leaning up of resources, if you want to call, so that you're achieving operational excellence. So it again drove back to the objective which you want to do. So that really helped to underpin the overall consolidation journey, right? Like what it should be. So that helped to define the why, and then basically helps you to define that, okay, you want to improve your security posture. Example, organizations, typically, like example, Boost and others, we adopt NIST cybersecurity framework, right? Now, that's a maturity framework which gives you improving your security posture over years, right? So that you are able to achieve step by step different levels of maturity, right, from technology, people, process as well, right? So I think it all kind of helped us to build that. So the why was answered to the objective, and then that underpinned to overall strategy. Now, then you look at overall, then I think one of the key elements is whenever you start defining and understanding why, it's also, you need to go back and reflect and see whether that consolidation journey or the strategy or whatever you're trying to adopt, how far are you ready? Do you have a good understanding of ecosystem? Because I think that's what, again, the industry, we use different terms, right? The gap assessment, or you want to call it dipstick assessment, whatnot. But I strongly feel it's very important to understand our current ecosystem, right? You need to know what are the dependencies, what component works. Now, with consolidation, a simple example, we are looking at moving to the cloud and look at one cloud provider. I'm just going with a very hypothetical example, right? Now, that could lead to so many other interdependencies, right? You might have certain legacy systems which has been running through. So I think these all are going to be very important as a part of your understanding your current ecosystem. And then that should also go back to a part of your overall strategy in terms to how are you going to look at consolidation. I think the very important thing then goes back is having an end-to-end clear plan in terms of how are you going to go about doing it, a clear program management office, running it up, ensuring that there's proper checkpoints, a proper migration plan, proper consolidation plan happens through. And then it will go through one very important element, which I've at least experienced in the past. When we're looking at consolidation, right, I think two things goes hand in hand. One is ensuring there is adequate testing done. So as part of our overall handover or consolidation exercise, there should be adequate time given into UAT, right? Given into integration testing, because it's very important that the entire interconnectivity, which is what this solution is going to give you a benefit. An example, by helping you to consolidate information through various sources, give you better telemetry, for example, and that is not able to do that, then it's going to be a big challenge, right? So I think spending that adequate time in testing is very important. And the other very important is the bottom up. Operationally, looking at change management, people change, right? Looking at training, ensuring people are having the adequate training in terms to what they want to do, so that the overall transition, the user experience overall is good, right? And then typically we, as we always do, once you have a productive measurements, you look at monitoring the typical PDCA cycles, which you call about, ensuring that adequate optimization done as a part of your solutioning. So I think this is what is the overall principle we have followed, and I think it's very common in the industry. If you read, there have been a lot more discussion points on this happened before, but I think this was some of the ways and how we tackled out the situations. Yeah.
No, I like that, Shankar. The references you made, and I guess I would classify it as an inventory collection. What do you currently have in the environment? The dependencies and interdependencies between those different systems, the integrations if you do decide to go to consolidation, but also, which I really love, is you also touched on the people element. If you decide to consolidate, are you going to have the people to run and operate that consolidated system? Are there gaps in terms of your skill sets, the UAT, etc.? I mean, you touched on a whole bunch of areas which are often overlooked, and it speaks to your experience. So that's why you're on this call. But I mean, for the novice, these are the kind of gotchas, and then, you want to consolidate and you forget, in fact, you may, in fact, expose yourself to further risk. So thank you for that. Well, with that said, we're going to have our last quiz question now. So this is the final question that qualifies you for this LED monitor. So let's put up the question. And again, it will be 10 seconds. So which benefits does security consolidation offer? Yep, all of the above. I mean, I think you heard from both Shankar and Sid for the last 30 plus minutes. Supercharge your risk posture, reduce complexity, etc. So, I mean, you've heard it in different shapes and flavors, but that's been the main three themes, and perhaps a couple more points that were very eloquently picked up on and flagged. We're now going to go to the final question to the panel. I'm going to pass it to Sid, since I need to give Shankar a break because he's been working very hard for me for the last 30 minutes. And the question to Sid is, before I go back to Shankar, how do you envision cybersecurity evolving over the next decade? So, if you can answer this one, Sid, I'm gonna take out my checkbook and start investing in all the right areas. So, over to you, Sid.
Oh, wow. No pressure, right, Stephen? It's just your checkbook. I think to me, cybersecurity is going to become increasingly baked in to all the activities that we're going to be doing as organizations, whether it's leveraging AI or whether it's launching more and more digital services, taking more services to the consumer. Cybersecurity is going to have to operate at the speed of business, right? So for that, we can't operate in a world where cybersecurity technologies or strategies kind of sitting off to the side or doing things after the fact. Like, for example, since it's quite topical, let me use ChatGPT as an example, right? Like you can't in an organization that is embracing digital, that you want a younger workforce, you want people to be excited to work for your organization, you can't really tell them not to use ChatGPT in their work, right? You want to be able to allow it, but you want to be able to embed security into the workflow of using a new technology. So you want to be able to enforce or govern the use in a way that makes sense to your organization, but you don't want to really block stuff outright. And if organizations want to embrace this posture of accepting new services, accepting new technologies, enabling developers to launch newer and newer services in order to drive competitive differentiation and increase value for their customers, you have to bake cybersecurity into all your digital strategies. So I think the cybersecurity team is going to become increasingly more important, more embedded into board level conversations. And in a sense, there's going to be two types of customers that the cybersecurity team will have to help the organization address. One is the external customers, which is obviously the customers of the business, and the other is also the internal customers, which is their employees, right? And their internal users and IT teams and developers and the regular IT users. So this is not my analogy, by the way. I recorded a podcast last week with Abid Adam, who obviously Shankar knows very well, the Chief Risk Officer of Axiata Group. And that podcast will be published soon. So I'm just shamelessly plugging my own podcast here. But this is an analogy he used, right, which is the internal customers and external customers. So I think the cybersecurity team will increasingly have to evolve to addressing both of these types of customers to improve their security and the user experience. But that's just me. Shankar, what do you think?
Great, Sid. I think it's it's very difficult to pinpoint on one, right? And if you look at it, the way the threats are evolving and what we're doing, I'm very certain that with the current one, the sophistication is definitely going to increase. We are talking about AI, ML. Obviously, we've been talking a lot more. Nothing specific with the product, but most product vendors also have that story, right? How the AI, ML are going to come in. Now, that's too much of AI, ML, but definitely that's going to pave the way with ChatGPT and all coming in. I really foresee a lot of more and more, and I'm also part of a mentor, part of a startup mentorship program under the Data Security Council of India, and I really foresee a lot. I really see a lot of companies there, startup companies, and some very interesting space I'm trying to see is how the usage of AI and ML is really coming up around in cybersecurity technology, especially around threat detection, anomalies, behavior analysis, and so on and so forth, right? I'm very impressed, and I'm really foreseeing that's going to be the future in terms of how we're going to do. There's going to be a lot more around quantum computing. Even we talk about quantum-based cryptography nowadays, right? There are companies who develop those quantum-based cryptography. I think it's going to be a lot more in terms of how your encryption methods are there, what's going to be the future rather than using your traditional mechanisms around encryption and the way we've been doing. Human element is, for me, is going to be default. It's going to be definitely a perennial problem, which we're going to be always going to be look forward, because there's going to be the weakest sources, but again, the weakest links rather, but we definitely are going to have more innovative ways of doing it, right? And as you rightly said, one of the key points which you always talk in Axiata as a whole is looking at security not only as inside out, but looking at security as outside in. And we are going to see organizations shift more towards not only looking at inside out as an approach, but going ahead and looking at outside in and try to see how your brand and what are you going to be advocating around customer trust and security, right? I think the traditional supply chain has started. It's going to go in more humongous breadths, I'm assuming, and I'm expecting, rather not assuming, is definitely is going to be there. Two key areas which I feel is now started triggering up a lot more, at least as CISOs, and we are seeing is there are more guidelines coming around ethical use of AI. How should we responsibly use AI? I think that's going to be definitely an area which is going to have a lot more scrutiny and a lot more guidance coming in as we're going to have, which includes the emerging tech as well. And an area which is very, I feel, a lot more governments, regulatory bodies are really emphasizing, has started looking at a lot more. There are more regulations coming in. If I had to say, in Malaysia, we recently have the cloud technology risk guideline published by the regulator Bank Negara here, right? And now the compliance requirements are becoming all the more stringent. There are going to be a lot more emphasis, scrutinies from regulators around compliance and so on. I think, these are some things which I strongly feel is going to be the trend. I don't know for the next 10 years or decade, but definitely in the near future of 3 to 5 years, I would say.
No, thanks for that, Shankar.
That's some great insights, great insights, Shankar, and there's a lot to unpack there. And I think specifically the point around improving threat detection using emerging technologies. A lot of the focus today tends to be on the new kid on the block, which is generative AI, right? But actually, the point is that the cybersecurity industry has been actually doing AI for a number of years now, and some of this stuff is really getting really good at detecting threats and malware, right? So great to hear your experiences there. The reason I'm actually jumping in and assuming the role of the host is because I want to throw it back to Stephen, because Stephen, you've been asking us questions for the better part of the last 45 minutes, but
I was about to relax, okay.
Well, you said you're bringing out the checkbook, so I want to hear your views as well. As a leader, go ahead.
Yep. Please.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as a leader of our ASEAN business here at Palo Alto Networks, you spend a lot of time with very large organizations, leaders like Shankar and others. So you obviously have a bird's eye view of what's happening in the security space in ASEAN. So what's your take? If I were to throw back the same question at you, how do you see the future of cybersecurity evolving over the next decade?
Yeah, I'm going to respond with adding some little nuances and flavor to what both your comments were, because there were some excellent points you raised. On the example about Chat GPT as an example, embracing new technology and so forth, I think history has shown organizations that decide to, drastically lock down their environments, bad actors, particularly internal people, will find a way to compromise a system. So the point, I think what you touched on, Sid, is really important. We can't stop new technologies. How do we embrace those new technologies? By using things like AI and machine learning, etc., to allow younger people, much younger than me, to use this new technology without compromising the organization. So that's point one. The thing that I do see across ASEAN, there, of course, the hot topics of generative AI, machine learning, large language models, etc. I see everywhere in every country, different levels of maturity, different levels of use cases, etc. What I do want to flag, and coming back to the theme of this discussion, it's around consolidation and why there's a huge opportunity for us, which I think speaks to the next 3, 5+ years. Consolidation will definitely support the ability for, very clean data, standardized data, conformity of data, governance of data, single data lake, etc. Why am I making all these points around data? Data is the underlying, fuel that drives AI. I think one of the biggest problems organizations will face in terms of operationalizing AI relates to the data. So consolidation will help deliver that objective of, wonderful, predictable insights using AI and machine learning. And the other part it will touch on, which Shankar was alluded to and spoke to on several times during this session, it's around the people element. The AI will allow automation and predictability. And we have a critical shortage across ASEAN in terms of skill sets. The AI will automate the boring but important tasks and allow the few people we have to skill up and focus on the more important threat hunting, threat detection, etc. So that's the opportunity for us. And that makes me really excited. So I guess there are the three things: embracing the new technology in a secure way to allow innovation, operationalizing AI through consolidation. And by the way, there is an opportunity, for example, some of the work we do is using things like some of our products to leverage and integrate into best of breed to give you the AI and insights into existing technology that a customer may have invested in. And thirdly, to automate, to take the burden away and the stress on the workforce and give them more interesting roles that more people will actually find, going into our security is actually a really exciting industry. And it's as great as being a doctor or an engineer or whatever else. And that's why I'm in this indry. So they're the 3 points. I don't know if that helps you investing, Sid, but
yeah, it
that's what I would
does.
say.
It does. My checkbook is not as fat as yours, but I think I got some good ideas. The one key takeaway, Stephen, from what you just said, I think, is about, which we didn't really touch upon as much as we could have, is the unification of the data model, right? Because
Yes,
with AI, it's like it's garbage in, garbage out, or good data in, good data out,
correct.
insights out, right? So a leading indicator of whether your consolidation strategies is well architected could be, is it helping you unify the data from all your different security telemetry and products in a way that's meaningful for your LLM or whatever it is you're running on top of it, to give you something valuable and actually bring the efficiency. So
I
brilliant
think
points there. And yeah,
I
go ahead,
think it's a
Shankar.
good point, right? So, you mentioned up, and even Stephen put it out, is the aspects of telemetry. Uh, is actually the core problem most of the industry or the C-suites face, is getting visibility around. Now, obviously, as you said, again, it goes back to the key debate we're discussing today, right? Just to summarize, is the point is you definitely, consolidation gives you a lot of upticks, right? But if it's well managed, if it's well done in terms to identifying all the risk the pitfalls, understanding what is your objective, and so on, I think it could be a great way for organizations to go ahead to, right? Now, again, as I said, it could be not a one size fit all for every organization, because it would mean for some, they might be in a very early stage of adoption, whereas for some, they might be in a more mature state where they could think about all these. But I think it's never too late. Overall, we need to look at a way or a mechanism about how this could help us. It could be from a cost, it could be from a value add, it could be from a better visibility or telemetry. We should go towards that part, but it could be a more balanced approach. That's what I would like to summarize.
Thanks for that, Shankar. I appreciate those closing comments. With that said, thank you for both participants on the panel. Thank you, Shankar. Thank you, Sid. Some of the key words: consolidation, context, use case, efficacy, interoperability, your competency of the people in your organization, telemetry to give you those deep insights to be proactive rather than reactive. And ultimately, I think what you'll see on this call is what's critical to our industry is collaboration. I'm really pleased that we have the opportunity to bring someone like Shankar on the call. It's not about myself leading a vendor or Sid, who represents the same company as myself, but it's to get these insights and discuss these challenges with people in the industry. And collaboration here is key. So thank you very much, Shankar. I appreciate the time. This doesn't end here. It is a journey. So I'm sure there'll be other opportunities for us to share our knowledge, our insights, our provocative statements, and our views on consolidation versus best of breed. So thank you both. It's been a wonderful 45 plus minutes, and take care, and we'll chat soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Ed. Have a good day.
Thank you, Shankar, Stephen. Thanks,
Cheers.
everyone.